That's what I'm saying. So I'll make it.
Then I'd sit back, and usually people don't want me to.
You know what I mean? Like something simple. And there's a
Good evening. I'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the presentation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the Board of Education meeting tonight. We'll begin with the approval of tonight's agenda. A motion, please, to approve the agenda. Paul and Shelley. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the agenda? Motion is carried. Tonight we have some presentations. Mr. Cohen, I'll turn the meeting over to you to make the introduction.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Collier. We're going to start tonight with our senior, Riley Batzel. This young lady, I'm sure many of you recognize. You've probably seen her on the soccer field. You've probably seen her commanding the stage with the recent musical. She's just an all-around fantastic young lady. I think that press release went out for her attending RIT in the fall, so she's an outdoors woman. She's very active in our school community. I found Riley to be somebody who will share her honest opinion when called upon, and she does things in a very polite, respectful way, so I would look to her as a student leader. It's been a pleasure getting to know her over the last few years, so I'm going to ask Riley to come on up and just give the board a highlight of anything you want to share at this point in time. So the podium is yours.
Okay. There. Hope everybody's been enjoying the beautiful weather. It's perfect for spring sports. Makes me hard to focus in school. He said I'm going to RIT, going to play soccer. I'm really excited. We just had our 100-day breakfast yesterday, and we're gearing up prom, graduation soon. I'm really excited. We did Dollars for Scholars this week, where seniors did a phone-a-thon where we raised money towards scholarships for graduation. On my night alone, we raised over $5,000, so that was really good. Seniors putting in a lot of hard work. We're really thankful for the new auditorium. We just had, as you said, the musical. We have our district concerts coming up next week on Thursday. We have All County this weekend, and we just really appreciate the auditorium. It's going to get to a lot of good use. You can come out. We have some really good musicians. I would love for you to be there. And as I reflect on my time at NRW, I'm just really thankful for all the opportunities that we've had. Being in a small school, a lot of people say it's not what it's made out to be. But I love it. You have the opportunity where anybody can join any sport, anybody can join any club. I don't even know how many clubs. It's just always something to do, and everybody has the chance to do things. We also have the Gemini program through FLCC, so I've had over a year worth of credits going towards college, so I won't have to take any gen eds. I can just focus on my major, which I'm really excited about. And I guess that's about it that I have to say.
Can I just pause for 1 second? There was a part of my introduction that I failed to mention. So Riley is a FBLA participant. So for the past few years, she's represented our school district regionally. She's represented our district at the state level. And honestly, last year she participated in a national competition. And I believe that this year, recently, you were given the task of impromptu speaking, and she had a few minutes to prepare, and I believe you scored a perfect score.
Yep.
And I believe that that's the first time in several years that the judges have actually seen that. So when she started talking about the participation, that's one part that I failed to mention. So I want to just say we're very proud of you for representing us locally, across the state, and then also nationally. So you should be commended for that. So thank you. Do you have any questions for me?
So I'm a big soccer fan too, so great that you're playing soccer at RIT. Congratulations for that. I know that's not an easy task to accomplish. Do you also play any spring sport?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. What was that?
Do you also play any
Oh.
spring?
Yeah, I do indoor and outdoor track.
Okay.
Coach Duke has us running a lot.
I know that, Coach.
Anyone else? Well, Riley, we certainly thank you for being here, and we are extremely proud of all of your accomplishments.
Thank you.
And as a board, we sometimes struggle with kids who are having difficulties or having trouble getting through school. But it's just wonderful when someone comes in who's really making wonderful achievements, and we're so really proud of you. So thank you, and we do indeed wish you well as you move on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again, Riley. So I'm gonna ask Mr. Barno to come on up. So tonight's gonna be the first half of the budget presentation. So we're doing it in two parts this year. So tonight we're gonna present the first half of the budget, and then on March 28th, we'll present the second half of the budget. I'll let Gary get into some of the particulars as to what's happening and where we hope to land this spring. And of course, you know, we have a budget workshop with the board before the public hearing in May.
Thank you, Mr. Pullen. Is this on?
Yeah, press that. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, okay. It was a tough act to follow. Everyone, this is Carrie Petrie here, so she now has an official duty. She's gonna be helping out with just moving the budget presentation along here, so thanks, Carrie. So as Mr. Pullen said, this actually models what we did last year, the first part of the budget, more of the non-instructional part of the budget, and then in 2 weeks, March 28th, we'll take a look at more of the instructional side. We're really, I always like to start off with what our budget guidelines are, and I think as of this point, we're at March, we're through the governor's budget. We've been working hard at this budget. Everyone here in this room, we've had many, many meetings, right? So we are, I feel confident and proud of this budget, that we're able to present this budget and maintain our budget guidelines and goals. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so just to put things in focus on the ballot, it looks pretty similar to years past, where the first proposition is just approval of our budget, our financial expenditure plan for the school. The second proposition continues our bus placement schedule, and so that's pretty typical. We've got 4 large buses and 1 small bus that we're planning on purchasing for next year. The third proposition, as in the last several years, has been us just acting as an agent for the town of Wolcott and Rose libraries. So we collect their taxes. Once we collect that, we just give them both a check. So we're just a pass-through agency. And then this year, for Proposition 4, the last couple of years, we've had a bus purchase reserve and a capital reserve newly authorized because they have life limits. This year, we're going to ask the voters to fund the repair reserve, which, as you recall, last month, February 8th, the board did pass approve the repair reserve fund. Now legally, we have to ask the voters to fund it. So the board gets to approve it. We ask the voters to fund it. And just real quickly, we'll be talking about this more and a lot of things later in this presentation or in 2 weeks or at our budget workshop. We'll be getting into more detail to answer questions, certainly ask any questions you want throughout this presentation too. But I just want to mention with the repair reserve that, so yes, you authorize the repair reserve. The voters will authorize the funding of it, and it's outlined there. And when we spend money from that reserve, we do have to hold a public hearing for that. So unless it's an emergency, then the board can approve some spending from that reserve, but it has to be for repairs. So we'll talk more about the purpose of that reserve and so forth. We'll have more opportunities in June. I always present the reserves report that will be included in there, and each of our reserves, you know, we indicate the establishment date of the reserve, basically the purpose of the reserve, and a little history about that reserve. So we'll include the repair reserve, the new repair reserve, in June. Okay, so here we are, March 14th, and we do have a balanced budget. So it's, the voters look at the appropriation side or budget or expenditure plan. So those terms kind of used interchangeably. That's what they approve. But it all has to be supported by revenues. And we always like to be conservative on both sides of the equation here, right? So here's a quick summary of the major categories, revenue categories, along with the expenditure categories. Okay, and just to reiterate, it is the budget or expenditure plan that the voters approve, and this year it'll be May 21st. They don't approve, they're not voting on the revenue side, but you know, prudence dictates that we have to have revenues to support what we spend. So, so with that, on the next slide, here's the hearing. Yes, excuse me.
So, I apologize, I've been out of town with you. The state aid, is that now a final number, or are we still negotiating that state aid number? I know there was some pushback in the superintendents, and I saw some.
It's not finalized yet. It's not finalized yet.
Okay, thank you.
So, April 1st is when the legislature is expected to pass the budget. That's when we'll know our final, you know, a few days after that, we'll know what we can expect. And we're hoping, as always, for a little bit more, right? So there were some issues with the foundation aid, with changes in that formula, and I know we talked a little bit about that before, but yeah, we're hoping that the legislator will replenish some of that lost foundation aid that we're experiencing. Okay. All right, so here's a quick look at our revenues, just to give you a little pie chart to see how that breaks out. And I talk about this every year also. State aid and property taxes make up the bulk of our revenues. So state aid is roughly 2/3 of our supports our budget, and property taxes roughly 1/3. So the combined estimated revenues for those two categories, I've got it 93%, 93.5%. So the rest is very important also. We have sales tax from the county. That's a long-standing agreement. Every once in a while that comes up for a discussion, but that looks secure. We budget $440,000 for that. We also apply an amount of fund balance to help support our budget and use of reserves. The other revenues, like interest revenues, other fees that we collect, other billings that we might have, tuition and so forth, really only amount to about 1.5%, 1.6% of that budgeted. Any questions on that? Okay, so here's a comparative look at our budgeted revenues from the current year to next year. So you will see some changes. State aid is down, right? So so that has been one of our challenges that we've been able to, we feel that we have worked through. We have really an increase in other miscellaneous revenues. That's really mostly interest that we're increasing. So interest rates over the last year and a half, 2 years have really gone up. That's really helping us out. We are increasing our reliance on fund balance, but not much. We're going up just $100,000. We're still at a very conservative level, I feel there. Some districts will appropriate a lot more fund balance than what we're doing, so we're in good shape there. And we'll talk a little bit more about our increase in the use of reserves there, but that is tied into our decrease on the expenditure side of actual debt service payments, and a corresponding decrease in our state building aid. So we'll be talking a little bit more, I think, when we get to our debt service slide on that. Okay, moving on to the expenditure side of the budget. Here's our general categories here. These are our major functional groups that you've seen before. And this pie chart really is roughly equivalent to what we've seen in the past, with about half of our expenditures devoted to what we're here for, instruction. So all the instructional categories, and that's the area that we'll be covering along with community services in 2 weeks in a little bit more detail. The other general support areas we're going to just touch on tonight. But here you see our budget to budget increase is about 2.25%. So. Thank you. Just like with the revenues, here's a comparative look from one year to the next in these categories. You'll see the whole budget here, and I have highlighted in green those functional groups that we'll highlight, go into a little bit more detail with instruction, community services in 2 weeks. Okay, so next slide. Thank you. So here's a comparative look of our general support budget. And the next slide will give you a lot of detail. What's in that general support budget? It's at about $4.5 million in total for this year. Overall, 3.74%. And remember, we're a people organization, right? So throughout the budget, there's salaries. There's salaries throughout all these, except for your category, Board of Education. Unfortunately for you guys, there's no salaries in there. But we expect our salaries to be going up in that area, approaching the 3.75-4% area as we negotiate. That's not in stone yet, but we're prepared for what we expect as an outcome. So throughout our budget is salaries. The benefits, related benefits, it's separated, and that's at the bottom part of our budget. We're going to be looking at that later. But here we are. That's a reasonable increase. I'll be mentioning right at the end our consumer price index that we're dealing with that factors into the tax cap was 4.1%. So that's kind of a benchmark. So when we look at these categories, all the costs that are incurred contractually, fuel costs and so forth, we feel like we're holding the line there and covering our necessary expenditures. Any question on the general support? The next slide will give you all the more subcategories which within each of those. So with $4.5 million, we're covering a lot of stuff. There's a lot of expenditures related to the budget that aren't directly related to instruction. So these are those categories. I'll just give you a quick example. In central services, because that's the biggest part of that pie there, right? That is about 60% of the central services, or about $2.7 million. Just on our utilities alone, that's $500,000 that we budget in there. You see these categories every month with your treasurer's report, and a lot of our financial reporting is broken out the same way. I talk about the functional budget, and you drill down. I show you the major categories, and then within those categories, you'll drill down even further, and that's what that looks like. Okay, and just to point out a couple highlights on the general support budget, you know, it does include, as I said, you know, salary costs in there. We're dealing with increases in all areas of the budget. And BOCES is the big one. BOCE services, administrative services are in the central support area. Represent a big ticket item for us. So just like us, their salary and benefits go up and they charge us accordingly. Overall, we'll be talking a little bit more about our BOCE services, in particular, you know, our special ed costs, like next session in 2 weeks. Okay, but within this general support, you know, we're maintaining our commitment to our facilities. Okay, the next category then will be our transportation budget. And so this is another large portion of our budget. We're feeling a lot better about our transportation department this year. And we're finally looking at you know, a fully staffed department. So, and we also are at 2 mechanics now. Since I've been here, we haven't had that. It's been needed. Mechanics sometimes, so does bus drivers. So we're where we think we want to be, or we're very close there with transportation. But the overall budget there is going up about 2.5%. I do have some reduction in cost for fuel is one. A year and a half or 2 years ago, we were at $5 a gallon for price of gas. That has come down. So we have had to do some tightening of the budget in certain areas, and I'll be pointing some of those out to you later. But we're also maintaining our commitment for our people, our contractual commitments, routing software, etc. And also planning on buying another smaller SUV type vehicle. You know, recently we just purchased 2, but that's as we trade in our vehicles and our larger buses, our fleet is coming down a little bit, and we're able to be a little bit more efficient with the smaller SUVs with so many small runs that only require a few kids. So that's what we're hoping to do next year, is another vehicle purchase. Anything on transportation next? Okay. Now we're at the debt service budget. So this is generally payment and interest payments that we have generally twice a year. And these payments, first part interest payment in December and another interest payment in June, along with principal payments for our bonds, and sometimes, as in next year, we'll have a bond anticipation note. Just the difference there is just a short-term borrowing versus the long-term borrowing. But we generally finance our projects. We start off the $11 million project. We start off supporting our payments for that project with our reserve money. And then we borrow with our recommendations from our financial advisors, who are fiscal advisors incorporated. And so typically we start off with some short-term financing for a year or 2, and then roll that money over into longer-term bonds. So that's what we have there. But we've got a drop-off this year in our serial bonds, as we paid off one of our bonds related to an old project several years ago. So I think that bond had a 15-year amortization period. We can say goodbye to that one. So we've got a little gap here between before our debt service expenditures starting to flatten out again. And we've got basically a one-year gap. So we do also see a corresponding drop in our building aid this year. So to help offset that gap between the building aid and the debt service, I am recommending, you know, an increase of funding from our debt service reserve fund. So, but that'll be a kind of a one-year event, and then that reliance on that debt service will come back down to about where it's been, you know, in the neighborhood of $200,000 to $400,000 to help support our debt service payments. So, and we're able to do that. We're in a really good position, and it's a great, first of all of our reserves are great management tools for long-term planning, right? To help even out the ebbs and flows of things like this, like a drop-off of building aid and debt service payments. So we can adjust how much we use, and debt service reserve is one of those tools. So we have $1.7 million in our debt service reserve fund at this point. We're expecting over $100,000 in interest earnings on that reserve this year. We expect that for next year. So I am anticipating an increase in the debt service reserve of about $350,000. So if that comes down, we'll be over $1.7 million at the end of this year, but then we'll use some of that next year. But we expect that balance to go right back up. So we've got a lot of playroom with our debt service reserve and how we pay for our debt service payments. Does that make sense?
Very much so.
We work very closely with our fiscal advisors on structuring our debt and corresponding building aid. And we did have them in for our budget workshop last year, right? So they're very, very good to work with, and they know what they're doing. So next areas are interfund transfer budget. There's only two items here, and the first one is a transfer to our special aid fund. So in our general fund, we budget a transfer. And again, I know I talked about this before, but that's really to cover the local share of our summer school handicap program. So that program is funded mostly by the state, between 70 and 80% is funded by the state, but we do have to pick up the local share of that every year. So that's, every year that's a budgeted item. So that's not changing much. We do have a drop off from $200,000 to $100,000 in a transfer to capital fund. Now, every year we've been budgeting for a capital outlay project. Right? This is what that is. The $100,000 that's for the capital outlay project. Next year we're planning on doing some work at the elementary auditorium. And the reason it's going down from $200,000 to $100,000 is because we expected 2 years ago, we expected that threshold, we're limited to the $100,000. There's been legislation to bring that, because it's a very small amount to do a project work, $100,000. I wish I had it, but it's not a lot when you're talking construction project work, paying prevailing wages, getting an architect involved, construction management involved. So those incidental costs are roughly $20,000. We really only have about $80,000 in the capital outlay project to spend. So there's been a push for years to get that up to $250,000, and it looked like 2 years ago and again last year that it actually might happen. We're a lot less optimistic this year. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. I think there's still legislation for it, you know. I think it's there, but nobody's talking about it. We don't expect it. We have to do some belt tightening because of some increases within our budget. That's coming back down to $100,000, okay? I mentioned salaries before throughout the budget, but benefits is in its own category. It's a major part of our budget this year, $8.2 million. And I also talk about our major cost drivers every year. And health insurance and retirement costs, both out of our control, right, are very volatile. So we every year wait with bated breath on how much our rate increases are going to be for retirement, and that's broken down between TRS and ERS retirement systems. And also the big one is health insurance cost. So that's a major benefit. We're fortunate this year. So our overall benefit budget is only going up 5.3%. If we go to the next slide, we'll just highlight some of those items. The TRS rate, which all districts have the same rate applied to their employees. They're predominantly administrators and teachers who belong to the teachers' retirement system. That's a much larger number, really, within our budget than the ERS system. So that was held pretty steady at 2.7% increase. The increase in the ERS rate has soared. It's almost 30%. Fortunately, we had a little bit of padding there, right? I have increased that budget line to accommodate the increase, along with, we may not have quite as much padding in that code anymore, but we already have our projected bill that we will pay next December. It's due, so we're kind of covered there. Fortunately, that's the lower budgeted amount, smaller dollars of ERS salaries applied to that rate. And that rate is different than other districts because it's a blended rate based on the tiers, right? So we have was anybody here a tier 1 employee or a tier 2? They're pretty much gone. Now we're stuck with from working. Thank you. They're still here. Not a lot of them working, right? We don't have any, but we do have tier 4, 5, and 6 employees. So that's a rate based on the tier, and so our blended rate is around 60% right now. And health insurance, just a little more specifically, we offer the Blue Point 2 as well as the Healthy Blue plans. Majority of our employees are with the Healthy Blue plan. That had a 6% increase this year, and the Blue Point 2 plans had a 4% increase. Now that rate applies to all districts within our consortium, the Finger Lakes Area School Health Plan, FLASH program. So we own our own insurance. Technically, Excelis is the administrator, and then we hire as a consortium, consultants to help us through that. So we're very happy to what ends up with a blended rate of about 5.35%. Always happy when it's single digits. We've gone through so many years with health insurance, we all know. Okay? So overall benefits budget is about 5.3%. So at this point, we'll cover the instructional side a little bit more in detail at our next meeting. But right now, we feel good about the fact that we're meeting our budget goals. We're minimizing our budget to increase. We're minimizing the tax rate. We're staying within the tax cap limit. We are maintaining our program and our bus replacement schedule, and we're going to continue with our capital outlay projects. We get a lot of bang for our dollar on those outlay projects, so we want to keep them in the budget. So our building aid ratio is about 88%. So that's a pretty good return on our investment, and we get to keep making improvements and where they're needed in our facilities. Budget summary: we're meeting contractual obligations. This budget reflects a reduction of our overall equipment budget of about $78,000. We have dealt with, and we'll talk about a little bit more next time, huge increase in our special ed cost, okay? More students, and I don't have the exact number of average cost of a student that's placed in special education that receives services outside of our district through OCs and private organizations, but it's not uncommon to be, in the six-figure range. So just a few changes in that, in the number of students that we serve in that capacity makes a huge effect on the budget. And this is an area of the budget where we always like to anticipate a few extra students coming in, because it can really slam us. And so it has this year. We're prepared for it. We've made adjustments in belt tightening in other areas. So we do have that covered. We have an overall loss of state aid, but a corresponding reduction in debt service cost. We have our capital outlay that we're maintaining. We're maintaining funds for our SRO program. Safety is number one. We're maintaining dollars for program, investment in our facilities, and our building budgets. Thank you, principals, for keeping your request to a minimum. And that's what we're doing there with the building budgets. Overall recap, a budget increase 2.25%. Estimated tax increase, and this is a conservative number. We set the tax levy in August in the summer. Always expect that number to come down, and it has every time. And to benchmark these increases in budget and tax rate, the CPI is 4.1%. So we are below that. So we feel very confident. We have presented a sound, prudent budget. Our timeline, I'd like to recap that. So on the 28th, we'll see part 2 of this budget. April 1st, state budget is due. Whether or not they approve the budget and it passes on the 1st, I think there's been some discussion that it may not happen. So then we're kind of hands tied a little bit behind our back, but we go forward in faith that our budget is well supported, and because the board must adopt the budget on April 11th, okay? If the state budget hasn't passed, we still have to adopt a budget, okay? So 2 weeks prior to the vote, we're required to have our budget hearing, so that'll other than next week, probably be the last presentation on the budget. But that is really geared for the public. Okay? And then on the 21st is the vote. That'll be at the high school from 12 to 8 this year. Okay? And we do feel we're doing what's right for children. Any questions?
John?
You know what? ERS, why did that rate go up so high? I know TRS, they have a return on investments and so on like that.
Yeah, I'm smiling because I went on a rant about that the other day, didn't I? So both systems use a little bit different actuarial funding methods, right? And I'm not an expert on how they arrive at future benefit obligations, but it definitely factors in so many things. How many employees are in the system, what age they are, and meeting their retirement costs down the road. They both use the stock market history over the last 3 years or over the last 5 years, and I don't remember which system goes back to 3 or which goes back to 5. I can tell you, if you take a look, there's a lot of detailed information on the retirement systems and how they fund these systems in the basic financial statement footnotes. So the annual report you got from our auditors, in the footnotes, about in the middle of that big document, there is more information there. But it is out of our control. So it is guided by the state comptroller's office. But the TRS system and the ERS system are separate entities. So they use different methods.
Thank you.
Paul?
And Gary, and so on page 3, we got a property tax increase of 5.31%. But then on page 10, the estimated tax increase is 3.77. So
that's where
those aren't direct correlations, then, right?
No, that's levy to levy, is the 5.3, but our tax rate increase is estimated at 3.7. So, like I said, I do expect that to come down. And the levy to levy is still within our tax cap limit.
What is the tax cap again?
The tax cap is essentially 2%
Yeah.
of the prior year tax levy, or it's the lesser of that, or the consumer price index. So when I go through a calculation on the tax cap, I factor that in. We do have some carryover amount, unused cap from the prior year, which is enabling us to use a little bit more on the levy. That rate is still gonna come down a little bit. So 3.7 is where we are in the rate. And that calculation, it includes several exclusions. So we actually get small relief because one of the exclusions, or possible exclusions to the cap, has to do with the TRS and ERS rates. So we're getting a few $1,000s more because of the huge increase in ERS cost. And in my opinion, it's a joke, because our costs are going up 30%, and they give us a tiny little bit. And when they set up the tax cap limit calculation about 12 or 13 years ago now, I think it was to kind of placate the public. Oh, if rates go way up, we'll give you a break. But they said if the rate goes up 2%, we'll give you a break. But if you go from 13 to 15%, that's a huge increase percentage-wise, right? We're paying a lot more, but the rate only went up 2%. And the rate has to go up more than 2% to get any exclusion. So we got 30% increase on the ERS rate. We get a very minimal break on the tax levy cap.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? John?
I hope I heard this right, but the county revenue sharing with us, it's kind of under the,
No, this is good.
under control this year.
With respect to the sales tax?
Yes.
They have not brought it up at this point in time. We haven't heard any conversation of them approaching that either.
A blessing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think that last year, the work to socialize the idea that when you remove, that sales tax benefit to the school district, that comes in the form of loss of people, and that loss of people reduces the amount of sales tax generated in our county. So we're hoping that that's something that's put to bed for the future years, but obviously as soon as we start to catch wind of it, we're gonna be aggressive again and advocate that they keep it at where it's at.
Like Mike said, there's a strong argument on all of us to maintain that program. So it's $5.3 million that's distributed through the county school districts based on average daily attendance. So we're pretty steady compared, we've all had this slow, very slow kind of a decreasing rate of decline in enrollment over the last few years. So year to year, our sales tax amount that we receive has been pretty steady at about 440,000.
I like the idea of the SUVs being used for transporting students. How's that working out? As our population decreases, it's logical we don't need as many buses as have 60-some seats in them.
Right, so.
How's that working out?
So as Gary said, so we're actually trading in 6 buses this year to support purchasing 4 buses and then 1 microbus. So that's the plan, is to continue to, have our fleet meet our needs. And then, so those 4 large buses, the 1 microbird they call it, and then the SUV, those will kind of balance out the need for transporting singletons or 2 or 3 students at a time, because we feel from an efficiency standpoint, we can be more efficient transporting students in our SUVs versus a large bus. And we're gonna continue to scrutinize that, and I think you're gonna start to see more regional work to start looking at the model for transportation when we have 6 school buses from Wayne County all ending up at the same place in Monroe County, to try and mitigate those circumstances by either contracting with a service provider that could go from the farthest point east to the west, and vice versa, from west to east, and then north to south, so on and so forth. That's a conversation that county-wide superintendents have started to have, and we're really looking at trying to grow more capacity with respect to efficiencies there as well.
I'm glad to hear that, because traveling on 104 occasionally, you see one bus after another versus South Sodas, and then
Yeah.
Place Event or Rose-Wolcott,
Yeah.
and they're all on a road.
Yep. We've actually consulted with RTS to talk about how they route, and with respect to, they do it for thousands of riders every day, so we've started thinking about, could you break the county into quadrants, and could you set up a central transfer station and really utilize things, but it's in its infancy. I mean, because you have that running parallel to the electric buses and a conversation about those. So it's really, from our standpoint, we're all struggling with the same thing. As Gary mentioned, we're fully staffed with our transportation department, between drivers and mechanics and things of that nature, but you're always constantly looking for efficiencies and sustainability.
I'll just add, if I can, we just had a recent meeting with Todd Henry, our transportation director. He's very excited about those vehicles, and they're getting used.
Now, I haven't seen one on the road yet, but do they have the same stop sign things that come out
No.
when the kids, no,
No, not our SUVs, no,
they don't need that.
no.
I was also very pleased to see that the appropriations for the buildings have increased, because I imagine the principals and the teachers in the buildings need money to do programs that they find beneficial to kids. So I was glad to see that that's increased, because I'm sure that's increased. The vendors out there want more money, like everyone. So I'm glad to see that happen.
Anyone else? I was quite frightened that the loss of foundation aid would be greater than is showing here in our budget. I'm grateful for that. When it first came out that they were considering cutting, I thought, oh my word, we could be in serious, serious trouble. But it's not quite as bad as
Now,
I
some
thought.
districts are in dire trouble, and, off the record, that was a surprise, from the governor this year. There was no talk about a change in the formula, so a lot of districts were taken by surprise there.
Okay, thank you, Gary, great job. So I'm gonna ask Lori Elliott to come on up and join us. So Lori's our community schools administrator, and she's been doing a lot of things that impact all 3 buildings, and really they impact us in a positive way. So one of the things that she's been doing recently is working with Midwest PBIS with respect to the EPIC project, and I want to let Lori present in detail what that actually means, and then field any questions you have at the end, because I think you're going to see what this group coming out of Chicago is saying really is pretty powerful. So thank you.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. So I'm happy to share with you tonight some information about this EPIC program that we are conducting. We are in year 3 of this program, and EPIC stands for Enhancing Family School Community Partnerships Through an Interconnected Systems Framework. So it's a mouthful, but basically what it's talking about is making sure we're all together working collaboratively on the same team to do what's best for our kids. So we are working with Midwest PBIS, and we are part of this research study, and we are a model demonstration school. So that means that they are studying what we're doing and how they're working with us to develop an article, to develop research so that they can help other schools in the future. So that's what I'm excited to share a little bit with you tonight about what this is, some of the data that was recently collected at our most recent site visit, and some of our next steps that we have moving forward. One of the first things that we did last year was that we took our North Rose-Wolcott mission and vision. We took the mission and vision from a variety of our community partners, including Wayne Behavioral, Family Counseling Service from the Finger Lakes, some of our other community partners, and created a mission for this program. And that mission is to support youth by empowering our families and community through collaboration between schools, families, individuals, businesses, and community organizations. So what is this interconnected systems framework? The best way to think about it is to look at those 2 diagrams that you see on that page, okay? This started in the mental health world, thinking about when you have community partners like Wayne Behavioral or Family Counseling Services coming into their schools. They're seeing our students and working with our kids. We don't necessarily know what's going on in those locations, and they don't know how those students are working on it in the rest of the school. You know, when I was teaching, I remember getting the green forms that you would fill out, and then you would never know what happened with that program again. It's not in your head. But we took this idea, and we're expanding it a little bit, so it's not just for mental health. But we're also thinking about this, how we can make our teams within the schools more efficient. How we can make sure that we are all working together, working on the same things, and everybody is hearing what the other people are saying. Maybe making sure everybody has a voice at the table and all the stakeholders are there to bring all of the groups together into one interconnected system. Instead of having silos of this team is working on behavior, this team is working on academics, this team is working on mental health for kids, this community provider is providing mentoring. Making sure all those groups are together, working together and have a voice and doing what's best for kids. We run a lot of our systems now through our MTSS process, which means that, and at that MTSS team, we make sure that we hear from all of these different groups to make sure that we're doing what's best for our students. So the goal that Midwest PBIS came up with, and what they're trying to do, is to install and refine this interconnected systems framework, noting conditions that positively and negatively affect the installation and outcomes across the settings. So I think it's important to note that they're noting both sides. This is a research study, and not everything has gone perfect. Not everything has gone the way that we expected them to. And when we had them come out for our site visit, which we'll talk more about in a bit, they said, we learned from you guys. We've learned that there's other steps that we maybe should have done differently moving forward. But we persevered, and we feel like this program is now in a good space where we're really doing good things, and it's helping us support what's best for kids. So what they're doing, some of the activities that they're working with us on, they're providing us some training and technical assistance. Technical assistance meaning they're helping us remove those barriers. They're helping us have those discussions that we need to have with community partners. They're providing us resources. They're working on this interconnected systems framework. And they're giving us a tiered framework of implementation support, meaning that they're all in right at the beginning, but they're going to start scaling back. And they have started to scale back, and we've taken more of this work on ourselves so that as we move forward, after we're done with this research study, we can do this on our own. We're one of 4 schools across the country in this initial rollout of this grant. There have been more that have been added in the past year or so, but we were one of the first 4. The only school in New York State, the only rural school that's part of this program. And while the focus was on our middle school, we've really taken these ideas and expanded them to district-wide because we feel like the ideas are not just something we want to do in the middle school. We want this collaborative idea and this collaborative focus and this interconnected systems framework to be across the district because it's doing what's best for kids. And it really hits all of our community promises when you think of what we have. Obviously, we're working on the partnerships. We're working on those steps to collaborate with our families, our students, our community partners. We're working together with all those. We're making a welcoming environment where all people have a voice and all people can be heard. Social, emotional, and academic. The academics are going to fall into place when students feel comfortable and they're ready and willing to learn. And we're going to see that we're making steps towards that. Financial. This is definitely a financial piece. We're not paying for this program. Okay, we don't get an allocation from the US PBIS for this grant, but they will support us financially through paying for some of our teachers who need to stay after or for some travel components. But other than that, they're paying for the other pieces. They're paying for our reviewers, they're paying for people to come out, and those kinds of things and the resources. So this project has taken a lot of energy over the course of the past. We really dove in at the beginning of last year and have been doing more and continue to do so. Megan and I participate in coaching calls 2 or 3 times a month where we meet with our project coordinator. We talk about different things, how she can help us, different steps that we're taking. We create agendas, we look at logistics, and do all those pieces. Where the magic happens is at these DCLT meetings, where we have community partners from across Wayne County, where we have a number of our admin from our district. We also have our MTSS team, we have parent representatives and mental health representatives all together at the table, having discussions, how to talk about how can we remove those barriers, all those red tape pieces, to make sure that everybody is working on the same page, that we have common referral processes, that we have common thought processes, that we're communicating with each other. And those happen once a month. The middle school MTSS team meets as a building team once a month with the reviewer again to do some professional development and to do some training. And the in-person site visits happen 2 times a year. The most recent of which was this past February, which is where we really got a lot of information that we're going to share with you. So as I mentioned, this in-person site visit that took place on February 27th. Sorry. In that site visit, our reviewer came from Chicago. Her name is Amy Flamini. She is our project coordinator, and she came out to conduct interviews. So she conducted student interviews, she conducted teacher interviews. She also held a parent focus group at the middle school. We had a mental health district-wide team meeting, and we had an in-person DCLT meeting. And over the next few slides, you can see these quotes from her in the green. And these were quotes that she added anecdotally as she provided us the data from these different interviews and different interactions that she had. And some of these are some pretty powerful information. So the first one that I'll share with you is it's obvious to me that your staff, from the lunchroom to the front office to the classroom, are working hard in creating an environment where youth can thrive. So that in and of itself, kind of like, oh, okay, we're doing some great things here. We're doing some good things that we should be proud of. So the first one that you see is a data summary from the students. What she did is that she went to 20 students in each of the buildings, because as we said, we're doing this not just at the middle school, but at the high school and the elementary school. She met students in the hallway, she met students in the classroom, she met students in the lunchroom. She asked if they would answer a few questions. Most of them said yes. There was only, I think, one out of the whole building that said, I won't feel comfortable doing that. But she asked the students these same questions. She asked them, name at least three behavioral expectations. This we know is probably our area that we need to grow upon a little bit. There was some confusion in regards to the kids when we're talking about, we were thinking about our Cougar Pride expectations, the ones that we've developed, and the kids were a little confused on that. So we'll come back to that a little bit, and we know this is an area that we need to work on. We asked the students, have you been acknowledged for positive behavior since January 1st? We asked the students, do you have a trusted adult in the building? Do you feel like a teacher will help you if asked? And do you feel safe at school? And you can see the numbers there, that overwhelmingly our students feel safe, our students feel supported, and our students have a trusted adults. And this is an improvement that we're proud to share. Because we know that if the students are going to learn, they need to have these things in place. Her quote, or what she told us, to summarize the walkthroughs, it is beyond impressive that most students interviewed said they had a trusted adult in the building. That if they were asked, the teacher would help them, and that they felt safe. What an accomplishment. She also talked to teachers and staff. 10 in the high school and middle school, 13 at the elementary school. This was out administrative with them. This was out anybody else who was there. We don't know who said these things. This was completely anonymous on the teacher's behalf. We asked them, again, do you know at least 3 behavior expectations? Yeah, we gotta work on that. Have you acknowledged a student for positive behavior? Do you feel supported by your administration? Was one question. Do you feel supported by your colleagues? Both of which were overwhelmingly yes. Is communication clear and consistent from the district from your administration? And do you feel safe at school? Again, almost all staff reported that they were supported by their colleagues, supported by their administration, that they received clear and consistent communication from their administration. Additionally, they felt safe when they came to work. What an accomplishment. Amy also met with 2 groups of parents in the parent focus group. These were organized by our parent volunteer at the middle school, Samantha Gardner, she's our parent liaison. And she met with, what she did is she sent out a parent square to ask for volunteers for parents who wanted to be a part of this group. She then received responses back. We had about 5 parents who wanted to come in person, and we had about 5 parents who wanted to come and meet via Zoom. So we had 2 groups. Again, no administration present. We did have a staff member who was a parent too. So in that case, we did have a school staff member there. But the parents were free. They felt comfortable to be able to say what they were looking for or what they felt. And they gave us this information that you can see. So they felt, in general, the highlights was that the middle school was welcoming, that it was safe. They felt that there was a focus on academics, which was strong. They felt that communication was positive, that communication was solid. They felt that the middle school principal was approachable. They felt that teachers are supportive and helpful. They also felt that the transition from the elementary school to the middle school was positive. They felt the teacher would provide assistance if students asked or parents asked for those supports. And in general, they thought it was a positive, respectful, and direct. They did have some areas of concern, one of which was there was one parent that expressed that she felt that some students are allowed to get away with some behaviors. There was also there was a concern about the 5th grade students being at the middle school. They felt that there was the age gap. And a concern over the elementary school or the middle school students riding with the high school students on the bus. There was a concern. There's the general concern, which is not just our school, but we know nationwide, the mental health concern, working with the mental health and still trying to work those to help students. And there's also was a concern about the ward assemblies. While it's great for some, it may not necessarily be great for all because of the academic focus. They provide us a few suggestions, which we will take into account and we can definitely take a look at as we move forward. Clarification of the communication protocol, meaning who do you contact when? Who's the first person you should contact when there's a concern for the classroom or there's a concern in the hallways? Who should be contacted then? Okay, they wanted some bus monitors. Perhaps having a forum to talk about why the security measures that we have in place are needed. They suggested that they would like to have more access to the school. They would want to be more volunteers. They want to be in classrooms and involved more. Okay. So they want some parent surveys, which is great because they're going to have one too. So they want to continue. They want some help for our continued support for our migrant families, and possibly putting resources within the libraries, the mental health resources. So those are great things that we can consider as we're moving forward. As I also said, we met as our DCLT, which, as I mentioned, this is community partners, this is building administration from the 3 buildings, this is mental health staff, and our MTSS team. So bringing all these groups together, we came up with some goals that we're happy to be able to build on the idea that we started with and be able to come with some next steps. And you'll see a lot of them are really focused, directly or indirectly, on family involvement. Moving family involvement from active participation to not just attending, but to the planning and the development. We have a lot of families who attend, but we feel like they're passive. We want them to be involved. We want them to be a part of their kids' schooling and part of that process. And increase involvement in decision-making opportunities to do that. Communication. Increase the incoming communication. We send stuff to parents all the time through Parent Square, report cards, but we want to hear from them. Having those voices and hearing those voices. And as we mentioned, we know this summer we will be taking a look at the code of conduct and hope to develop clear expectations district-wide about that code of conduct. So if we ask these questions next year, we'll have some better results, hopefully. We also want to look at our documentation. We have a lot of resources available on our website. We want to make sure that everything is available on our website, but we also want to make sure we're providing information to parents how to access those things on our website. Our tech-based parent liaison has done some of that work, and we continue to promote more of that as we go through. So lastly, the final thought that Amy left us with was this quote. Of course, there are always areas that we can build on, but it appears the most challenging part of creating a safe, predictable environment in a place of NRW is in place at all 3 buildings. When people, staff and youth, feel safe and have relationships, learning occurs. I can honestly say that I've not seen this kind of progress in such a short time, the last 15 years of doing this work. It seems to me that you have the right administrators and staff at the right buildings at exactly the right time. So I conclude with that thought, and I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Questions, anyone? Paul?
I've got 2, but actually one's for our superintendent. So this was on the parent suggestions of clarification of the lines of communication. That kind of caught me by surprise because I know we talked about that and we have it published. Is it not published in that brochure that comes up first thing in school?
It is, and it's on the website.
Okay.
Just a matter of, in terms of, we're a smaller community, so people, following that protocol, starting at the lowest possible level and working their way up, oftentimes needs reminders.
Okay. I had one more question. So on the front page, we talked about including businesses too, but I didn't see anywhere else in the presentation where we're looking to include businesses. You've talked about it a couple of times in the past, though. I know we do Empire Fruit Growers and a couple of the things, but can you elaborate on that?
We are always looking to refine the membership of our DCLT, and I can see as we're, now that we're, I guess you would say, have some goals in place that we're going to look towards, I would welcome the opportunity and we could reach out to more of those businesses to bring in those ideas. We started with groups who were directly coming into our buildings. So we have, we have a representative from Wayne Family Counseling Services of the Finger Lakes, Wayne Behavioral, those groups. But I can see as we're moving forward, that definitely adding some more business partners on there.
Okay, good, thanks.
You're welcome.
I don't have a question, but I think it's an excellent summary of things, programs, and outcomes that we've heard about through the years here. And I'm proud of reading this. I think it's great. I think it puts it all together, created by an outsider, shall we say, who is verifying that we're doing good things at North Rose-Wolcott.
I think we felt the same way as well.
Yeah.
We were very proud, and she came to our DCLT and she said, "Wow, I can't believe what I heard, and I can't believe what you guys are doing here," which I think gave me and the people that were there, we were all pretty happy.
Lori, with the parent suggestions, I'm really interested in those and think they get a lot of good points here. Can you tell me what they meant by resources, provide libraries with resources for mental health support. Are they talking about people, programs, books?
I think that more handout type things. I believe one of the representatives who was there works in one of the libraries, and I think she was looking for maybe having some things on hand, so flyers, those kinds of things. You know, we recently, Wayne County and actually Wayne Behavioral actually recently completed a resource file that we could put some of those things there to have available. So those different things, I believe that's what she was looking at.
It's a fantastic report.
So
I'm blown away, actually. Paul?
You mentioned that we're going to continue to get some support, but first of all, I also should have said I love the program. So this is something that we're establishing, but it doesn't end, right? I mean, there's no end date. This is forever.
Right, so and that's what they're truly working on. I mean, so we had pretty regular contacts, we still have regular contacts with our, with Midwest PBIS, but really, we've kind of taken the ownership on ourselves to kind of enhance what we're doing and make it fit. Because as I said, we're part of a research study, and some of the things that we did early on really were not fitting with what we were doing. You know, we already had some things in place that they were looking to try to set up, and we wanted to make it so it fit for us. So, you know, which is why we also looked at not just looking at the mental health systems, but also bringing in everybody and making sure that people have a voice. So we will continue this. This is good work. These are good things for our staff, for our kids, those things.
Good, thanks.
Yeah, Megan was part of this, 100 years ago when we started PBIS here. This is so much different.
Very much. Yeah.
It's incredible how far the whole movement has come. I think we were out of Wisconsin, weren't we, originally? And this is just much more comprehensive. You're getting more support, more ideas, but they're also letting you do it. They kind of came in and told us what we were going to do, and it never worked. Worked at the elementary school, really struggled at the high school, but this sounds like that team effort where they're letting you take the lead, but giving you the guidance and support is there. This is great.
Good process.
Hey, but it takes time.
Absolutely.
It really does, and they kind of got the kinks out. Sort of. It looks great. It's impressive.
So, thank you.
Yeah.
Shelley,
It's fine.
Okay.
No, I'm good.
Are you sure?
I'm good, really.
Okay.
Everyone is
Good.
Yeah.
You want to know?
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you, Lori.
So, not to take up too much time, but just really because I knew we would be pressed with those two presentations, and I think they both did a wonderful job at highlighting, the core of what we're trying to do, for institutional consistency, offering a fiscally sound product to our community, and, starting off with Riley, going to Gary now with Lori's presentation. I think that it's this group here, right? Vivian Bishop is a sophomore, finished second place in the state alpine skiing. That young lady's been 3 times to the state level, and it's a part where, again, she's pushing the envelope, she's taking advantage of what we're able to offer, and really just deserves great recognition for, being a stellar athlete, but also being committed to her craft and continue to work on things. So want to just conclude tonight's presentations with that. And then this next slide, just to also highlight one of our seniors who received the award, the Wayne Finger Lake Superintendent's Award. Nick Gilbert, was recognized for, being an outstanding citizen from North Rose-Wolcott. There were so many students from our district that could qualify and would qualify. Nick was selected, and Nick actually happened to win one of the bigger awards, and he's there with a graduate, Mr. Hullahan from Marion, who's a senior at Binghamton, who was the keynote speaker for the event, and our district superintendent, Lynn Rotnick. So, very proud of what product we're putting out there. As I've said many times before, we're a work in progress. We'll continue to be a work in progress because we deal with human beings. But we're doing some pretty darn good things here. So just wanted to say thank you to the board for continuing to support so many different things that are happening for our students. Without that support, without your backing, it would be darn near impossible. So we appreciate your continued support and what you're doing on behalf of the many students. And as Gary said earlier, he did double your pay in this year's budget, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poland. And we acknowledge too that it's under your leadership that these things are happening. I couldn't help but think, I don't know when it was, Jason, that you passed out some research of five years to accomplish something for a superintendent or an administrator. And you're in your 4th year, and it's wonderful to see great progress occurring. So thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the reports. Administrators, you all have been here for an hour. If you're ready to leave, certainly you're welcome to do that. I'm glad you were here to see the presentations, but you're welcome to leave, and we won't boo you when you leave. We'll start with our building liaisons. John, do you have something to report for the elementary school?
Did we leave too?
No, you haven't.
The elementary school had their PE night, physical education night, which was well planned, and it's always a great time for parents and grandparents and so on to be there to see the kids perform. They had a UPK informational session. The families learned about the three PK and UPK and kindergarten programs. Parents could get assistance in registration process. They signed up for Parent Square and kind of got them into the system. They also could meet some of the teachers, and they had activities for the kids like supervised gym time. They had the art class open, and more importantly, they had cookies and raffles. And interestingly enough, Derek Poole, who from the Wayne County Literacy Group, volunteers, gave free books out. And Derek was a graduate of ours. 82 people attended, and we had 22 new registration packets for a total of 55 at that point. That's probably increased since then. The Rotary Student of the Month was Melanie Ferguson, a 4th grader, and she and her family and the principal had a Rotary luncheon. Parent-teacher conferences are coming up next 25th, 26th. And the interesting thing is that obviously the parents go to see the little kids, especially to see the artwork and see the teacher and their rooms, and they're excited to be led around by the kids, you know. But the interesting change is, at least in my mind, is that the students now set goals and they report to their parents about the goals that they set and how they've achieved them within the classroom. I think it's interactive. It's a healthy situation where when the child tells what they have done in their words. I think that's important. So that's my report.
I think you're right. Thank you, John. Shelley, do you have anything from the middle school?
I do. Let's see. For March, students, staff, and parent volunteers are working very hard on this year's musical, the middle school musical, Finding Nemo Junior. The first showing will be held at 6 p.m. on Friday, March 22nd, and the final show will be at 2 p.m. on Saturday, March 23rd. The district concert there will be a district concert on March 21st. 5th and 6th grade band will perform a special piece with the 7th and 8th grade band, and students have been working very hard to do this. Literacy night is on Tuesday, March 26th, and and that will be held from 6 to 7:30 in the middle school cafeteria. There are fun activities, which includes read-alouds with Mr. Poole, book reviews, book raffles, and crafts. The week of March 18th, visitors will assist the librarian in weeding out books and reorganizing the library. And the library will be closed for the entire week. They're really excited to see the outcome of that. Modified spring sports are all set to begin on March 18th. This includes modified softball, baseball, modified tennis, girls and boys, modified track and field. They currently have 46 students signed up, so parents, please, if you have students that want to participate, please make sure that you sign up. And that's it.
Great. Linda Egner isn't here tonight. I'm sure you're all aware that her mother, Helga, has been in very poor health and has recently been on hospice, and this afternoon Helga passed. So we certainly give Linda our condolences. Linda was to report on the high school, and she was very concerned that we get the report. I don't know, is Nicole?
Yeah.
Are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Do you want to read your report?
Sure, absolutely.
Here it is for Linda, and you might as well read it as
Should I turn this on, or can you all hear me?
No, turn it on so that the recording will hear.
All right, fantastic. So this is a great time of year for our seniors to apply for scholarships. They can find a variety of scholarship opportunities on the counseling page of our website, and those are targeted to help plan for college, as well as some for those who are going into other fields as well. There are 2 upcoming field trips that we have for our juniors to look forward to. They will have the opportunity to visit SUNY Brockport on April 17th for a college fair. Representatives from over 35 SUNY colleges will be there to meet with our students. And then on April 23rd, students in grades 10 through 12 will have an opportunity to attend the Finger Lakes Career Day at the Geneva Recreational Complex. So students will be able to connect with leading companies, local businesses, organizations, colleges to explore a wide range of career options. We are hosting the All-County International Instrumental Festival Friday and Saturday. So tomorrow will be the practice. Students will arrive from our area at around 2 o'clock, around 12, and practice in the afternoon. And then on Saturday will be the performance. Over 150 students from 12 participating districts will be here. So if you are able, please join us on Saturday at 2:30 for the junior high performance, and then the high school performance will be right after. Tickets are sold at the door. Our district concert, as we said, is on the 21st, and our district art show is also scheduled for Thursday the 21st here in the gallery. And then we had, as Riley said, our 100 Days to Graduation breakfast yesterday, so our parent liaison and some other organizations donated some things for us. It was set up in here. They had candy bars, balloons, little graduation hats, so it was a great time to celebrate, or to begin celebrating those last 100 days. And then also on the 27th of February, we rolled out our digital hall pass system, and this has been widely received by both students and by our teachers. So instead of our normal green passes, students initiate a pass through either their Chromebooks, or the teacher can initiate the pass as well. So it really cuts down on that instructional time that's spent writing passes out, sending students out. So it's really, we are able to monitor how many students are out in the hallways. So it has been a really great rollout, and it wouldn't be possible without technology, our technology department, as well as all of our teacher leaders and classroom teachers. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Tina, do you have something from Food Drops?
Yes. Came in on Wednesday and met with Mr. Matthews. They have moved into the new classrooms. Everything is going well. Working on a few areas, but
really pleased with that situation. And they've had some really good news. They have a graduate that's completed the program as of March 6th. He's going to wait and graduate, walk across stage to really celebrate the accomplishment with his peers, but he's made it. So we have a great success story here. They've added more students in, so they're working toward getting students so that they're being more successful overall. But they feel the program is feeling some real good success right now. So that's been good.
Would the students who have graduated still be coming to school then, or do they?
No, they're done.
They're done.
His diploma will say March 6th, but he'll participate with all senior activities.
Nice.
He's completed, he's earned his degree or diploma rather, and he's on to bigger and better things. Got that passport.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Of course, Linda isn't here to report on Fort County at all. And I have nothing for handbook. John, anything you want to say about audit? You had sent us your minutes, and those were very good minutes as far as understanding what went on at your meeting. Is there anything else you want to say?
And then, I have to thank Lori's gone. Michael, Lori, and Gary for presenting information having to do with the COVID funds that were sent out from the federal government to the state to local learning areas such as ours for buying things and programs and whatever to make the gap in school education a little bit easier for kids to transition, such as summer schools and et cetera, there's a whole raft of them. But the number of programs that we have, the number of things we spent money on, were monitored very closely and are being monitored very closely by SED, our state education department. They've had a number of interactions with them, and which is a good thing, and it's a positive thing. The money has to be spent by September of this year.
Great, thank you. The District Safety Committee, I want to thank Jason for representing the board on the District Safety Committee. But Jason has resigned from that, and I would at this time like to officially appoint John Bogart to that committee for the board. Policy Committee, Paul?
Just colleagues, take a good look at that one that we want to delete. We thought, because everyone has their own cell phones now, that it was almost an irrelevant policy. But then I've asked, actually some people have asked me about it, so I ask you, take a good look at it, consider it. If you think we should delete it, we won't. No, that's not.
Okay. I'm sure there are pluses and minuses to that, keeping it policy. All right, thank you. And everything listed here is first reading, so.
Yeah, in the review, so.
Thank you. At this time, Tina, do we have any requests for public access?
Well, while she's doing that, could I ask Paul about in the committee, the reason for deleting it is because we assume that most people have their own smartphones or instruments?
Yes.
Okay.
How many district devices are there?
There are no district-owned cell phones. None.
So is there a policy then, or a need to give money to a person who has their own smartphone and is doing things with it, as far as their business use, as being an educator?
So that's a different dynamic. That's a contractual thing versus a district-owned device. So when you get into contractual obligations, there could be money applied toward internet, could be applied toward a hotspot, could be applied toward cell phone payment, could be a variety of different things, but those are contractual. That's not a policy. This policy is specific to district-owned devices, and a few years ago, there were a handful of district-owned devices for maintenance and operations. Certain people had them, they were on call, might have been a few administrators that had them as well. That no longer happens.
Yeah, I was one of those that got one of the initial cell phones, and we had no idea what to do with them. No one communicated back and forth. You know, we just didn't know. It was brand new. So that's what I kind of assumed was the case with this policy. It's just not relevant anymore in this modern era.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there would be any reason in the future why we would have a need for district-owned cell phones, whether it be an emergency or some sort of communication that we would therefore need housing. I don't know, I'm just throwing that out. Something to think about, I guess. Okay, does that do it then, on questions on policy? Okay. Tina, is there anyone?
There is no.
There is not, okay. We'll move now to the consent agenda. A motion, please, to approve the consent agenda. John and Tina. The consent agenda goes through page 5. Down to the bottom. Is there any discussion? Discussion on the consent?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Letter E, I was just curious,
Wait, okay.
is the sheriff always going to another district or no?
Private sector.
Because he bought a house in the district, didn't he?
Any other questions on the consent? All right, then all in favor of approving the consent agenda? Those opposed, all are in favor. Consent agenda is approved.
Tina, were you with there? Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
I didn't see, sorry. You were too quick.
All right, so if you move over to page 5, the bottom of the page. A motion, please, we're on number 6 at the bottom. A motion, please, to approve language for the May 21st, 2024 budget vote. Motion, John, a second. Tina? Discussion? Hearing none, this is a roll call vote. That would be on page 7.
Cinda,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Shelley,
Yes.
Linda is absent, Jason,
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Thank you, motion is carried.
And now on page 7, a motion, please, to approve the notice of public hearing and annual school district election. Paul and Shelley. Discussion. This one is also roll call, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. All right, roll call vote, please.
Cinda,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Shelley,
Yes.
Linda is absent, Jason,
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Thank you, motion is carried.
All right, now, next is page 7 at the bottom. Would that be correct?
10 at the bottom, too. The resolution to
Leave my
authorize.
number system incorrect, sorry. All right, at C, correct?
Yes.
A motion, please, to approve the resolution to authorize the unsealing and opening of the ballot box. Shelley, Tina, discussion? Roll call vote.
Cinda,
Yes?
Tina,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Shelley,
Yes.
Linda is absent, Jason,
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Thank you, motion is carried.
Thank you. That completes the consent and the motions. We come now to the board member requests and comments. I have for you, which I will pass out, a calendar for the board for the rest of the year. Of course, it's always subject to change. And I hope that this would be helpful. I'll just let you look at it, I guess, it's, read it. Bad.
There's napkins right there by the cookies.
I don't think there's enough there.
None up there.
Oh, Jason. Oh, dear. Well, it's a depictive bottle. I mean, look at it. It's like the tower, leaning tower of Pisa. And you did it.
Is that enough?
That's good.
Yeah, it'll be all right for now. Yes, thank you.
All right, in looking at the calendar, you'll see that there are the regular meetings for the first meeting, and there may be other presentations, of course, added to those. We knew right away that we needed to deal with the budget process coming forward. And we also know that we have to work on the superintendent's evaluation. I know, Paul, you had mentioned concern about the policy. What has happened in the past, since I've been on board, actually, is that the policy has stood while each year the president of the board and the board itself tried to find different ways of doing the evaluation. And we've tried checklists, we've tried the NISBA one in the book, and we've tried just narrations. We have tried getting together and just talking it through. And I don't think we've ever found one that we've really all been happy with. And of course, any evaluation we do needs to be compatible with what we've asked the superintendent to do in the first place. So that was why the that old policy has stood because we were trying to find something. And once we were happy, we were going to change the policy. So what I'm kind of looking for on April 24, yes, would be for us to talk about a process and how we do want to handle it. In accordance with Michael and what we've asked him to do this year. And then in May, at the 23rd meeting, we would actually do it. If on the first one, we decide that we want a tool of some sort, let's just throw out, we want a checklist. During that month, that will be developed, and then we'll be able to actually accomplish it on the 23rd. And Tina has volunteered as vice president to kind of take charge of that process. So it's important to give the vice president something to do. So that's what that's all about. Are there other questions you have on that?
Yeah, I do. So in
Yeah.
other words, the charge will be out in April to come up with a document of some type, an instrument of some type.
To
In that
decide,
month.
yeah, there may not be an instrument, maybe we just want to sit
Well,
down and talk.
that's an
You know, I
instrument,
mean, whatever we want.
That's an instrument.
We're gonna have a process.
Yeah. Okay, so in May then, we'll actually do it.
Right,
Hopefully.
now, suppose you decide, suppose the board says, okay, we want to do it the way the policy says, where you get a document, you fill it out by yourself ahead of time, and then it's pulled together. You know, that will all be determined at the first session in April, the workshop session.
But don't we have to change the policy if we're gonna change the procedure?
Well, that's what we had decided years ago, that the policy, when we have a procedure that we want, we'll do it.
So I guess my question would be is if we do change the procedure, is there enough time to implement the policy with 2 reads?
Well, it would be done following that.
So we violated policy.
We violated policy, but in the past boards, since I've been on the board, have purposely not followed it because they didn't like it.
It should be more generic in other words.
And, yeah. And, you know, for us to sit here and write a policy that tells how we're gonna do it, we've never tried it, we don't know if it's gonna work, but that was the way it used to be, from the time I got on the board.
Well, so then on the 24th, we can look at the policy. We can then determine if we want to go ahead and we feel compelled that we need to follow the policy or make a new one. So correct, so that's a good, it's a good first step.
And what do we want to do?
Correct.
Okay, and
Right.
now let's try it.
Correct. Right.
And if it works and we all like it, we know how to write the policy.
What's the date that the policy says that it has to be completed by, or what on Michael's contract?
Hold on, I've got the policy.
Yeah, I don't remember that either.
That was the following, that was done.
No, I know, but I think Michael's contract, or any superintendent's contract states that it has to be done by a
That's
certain date.
right, that's right.
Mike, you know what date that is?
Oh, this isn't the right one, hold on. I must find it.
It's in the handbook, I just don't have my handbook with me. I think there's a copy of the instrument in the handbook.
Yeah, it's in the policies too, but I didn't.
In the past, the superintendents have never held us to policy or to their contract, the date. Just because so much has to be done in the spring with the budget. And,
And I don't disagree with that statement at all, but I almost think that it ties the hands of the superintendent in doing their annual goals because they don't know what the feedback from the board's going to be. So I think it's an injustice to the superintendent for us not to have it done on time.
it's true that the policy,
Here it is, Cindy.
have you got it? Tina?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, it's policy 4240. It says that the Board of Education president will forward to each board member an evaluation form no later than March 1st.
Oh,
The annual performance evaluation will be completed no later than the first board meeting in May.
So based on
So,
that timeline, there wouldn't be, if you were going to change the policy, there wouldn't be ample time to change the policy between the first and the second reading.
There's no intention to change the policy
Oh, I thought that's what you said.
until we've tried the procedure.
No, what I'm saying is, and follow this policy. that's
No,
in
we're
place.
not following. We've never followed it, that
Well,
I
we
know
had,
of.
we had those carbon copy ones my first year that we used.
the dates we didn't follow, is what she's saying. We've never followed the dates.
Oh, maybe not.
That's all. I mean, in the timeline for the superintendent's evaluation, in July, the goals are established. In August, the Board of Ed approves the superintendent's goals. They're disseminated to all stakeholder groups. January, it submits a goal progress report. We provide feedback on goal progress in open session, overall job performance, executive session. In March, the blank evaluation forms are distributed. In April, we do the evaluation.
That's the one that worries me, is August.
Which one?
The approval of the superintendent's goals, because the longer that we drag out finishing his evaluation from the prior year, or hers, whoever's in charge, they don't have time to adjust their goals to what the feedback from the board was. You know, you're asking him or her in a busy time of year to adjust their goals to what our expectations are, or that board's expectations at that time. I
No,
think
we're
that the
not
time-
asking him, to adjust the goals. We are evaluating whether they make their goals.
Certainly, but I think any constructive criticism or feedback that are in those evaluations, most superintendents are gonna take those and then incorporate them into the following year
The
goals,
following, right.
which we have to approve in August. We're supposed to approve in August.
There you go.
The second policy that we need to discuss is 4310, which is basically a job description of the superintendent. So those are the two that we have to discuss. And hopefully, this kind of conversation is what we'll do in the workshop.
Yeah,
That's the plan.
the goal is to marry the policy to what we really want to do. So
Exactly.
This is a great time for a rewrite or,
Right, and we can do it.
yeah.
It's ambitious,
I do
yes,
understand
but we're on
that.
the right track.
And I do understand, yeah, I mean, we openly admit we're not following it, so, but that's the goal of the committee is, let's get this right, let's fix it.
Yeah,
That was the intent.
okay. All right, let's see,
I have something I'd like to read.
Tina, okay.
I have to write if I can't just remember. So I was very fortunate this week. On Wednesday, I was at the high school to meet with Mark Matthews for Cougar Ops. But at the same time, they were installing the new press box. So they called Mark, so he said, come on. So I went out too. It's amazing. It looks fantastic. It brings the whole facility together. We have the new concession stand, the bleachers, the dugout, and the press box. We look like we're a school ready for sports. We look like we're here for the business that we're in this for. And it was really impressive. Our Cougar pride is there. I think we need to take advantage of this. We need to really promote ourselves again. You hear the kids in the hall that day, it's a whole different feel to the building. It really is. So I think we're on the right track. Additionally, I ended up staying and I got lunch. I got lunch. The reps were here from Clayton, who are the ones that put up the bleachers. And if you recall, Mike's been giving us some information where there was some difficulty. And he didn't let it go. He doesn't let things go. He went to, called their district manager, the district manager was here, and the president, the CEO of Dan Clayton was here. And they watched the press box. I mean, they were on top of it as well. And they were there talking with all of us. I think it's important for our community to understand that those two, who are the big deals of that company, only had good things to say about working with our staff overall, working with our facility, seeing what we're doing, where we're headed, and working with our superintendent. They felt that we have leadership here that really lends itself to promoting our students, promoting our whole, what we're here to do. It was refreshing listening to them. And the other thing is they did wonder if we had any other projects.
That they did.
I guess it was fortunate to see it, so it was nice. I think it's important our community knows those things are happening.
Yeah.
That's all.
I have two
Thank
things.
you, Tina.
From the last meeting, did we find out if that bus lift is gonna fit, lift electric buses?
It will, so it's rated for up to 30,000 pounds. And so the feedback we got from the vendor, is that an EV bus is about 1,000 pounds more than a diesel, which was news to all of us, but Gary's research found that it would, if the lift would support it. So if we were to go to a larger lift, that would go up to 60,000 pounds, would increase our cost quite a bit. And it would, overall, percentage-wise, it would reduce the amount of aid we receive back. So I think it's about $50,000 to $8,000 out of the $75,000 cost that's aidable for us. So it's adequate. And if we did do anything different, it wouldn't fit in the current configuration. So that crew's gonna come out and I wanna say, once the PO goes, I think it was like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that. So to try and get it in, and they'll work on the foundation, because that was the other concern we had with the lift is, will the cement deck hold up?
And secondly, I left some data I put together this week that everybody's asking, like, two if possible, discuss it for next meeting.
What did you want?
To discuss the data that I put together for everyone. There's a lot there, so there's no reason to talk about it tonight, but if you could just look at it, I'd like to discuss it.
Is this something that we've all,
So that's from you, I thought it was from me.
We'll just do our
things?
board member requests.
The board member has requested a topic of discussion for the board for our next meeting, and this is up to the board, whether they want to discuss it. Was there something in particular you're looking for, Jason, or did
Not
you?
really, we just talked in the past about maybe, well, I don't know if you talked about it, but I've asked for more of a live document for, state proficiency results and our fall, winter, and spring assessment results. And this is kind of the layout that I had in mind. So I just wanted to go over it with everyone. Get their opinions.
Now, can I ask where the data came from?
All that data is from New York State, the New York State report cards.
The report
Weighted
cards.
schools. Yeah, so it's New York State schools. What's that called?
It looks to me like it's more, it encompasses more years of what I'm trying to say, so it kind of, I remember asking for, we one time we had a little stair step or a sawtooth thing, but, so it's multi-year, that's what I'm trying to say. Looks like it's multi-year to me.
And the report cards, help me here. The report card that came out this year is the data from what year?
22, 23.
It's from this year?
22, 23, last year.
The year before, okay. So I'm asking board members, is this something you want to add to your agenda for next
I believe that for new board members, which there's probably gonna be 2 of them next year, and future board members, a layout like this would provide them a quick and easy way to see what the trend of the district looks like.
Jason, I just want to be sure, this is for 2014 to 19?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the 14 proficiency,
Right, yeah.
15,
I-
16, 17, 18, 19.
Right.
From 19 to 14, it was a base average. It wasn't broken down by grade level
Okay.
like it
All
is
right.
today.
I just want to make sure I get the dates, the years. Okay.
Paul, I saw your hand.
I would just say, I'm willing to discuss it.
So, I mean, I appreciate all the work that you put into putting this information together. I'm trying to think, I mean, obviously I would want the district administrators to be looking at it too,
Oh,
prior
certainly.
to, right?
No, certainly, I mean, but the board's got to decide that that's the way they want the data presented to them. So.
So it's all about, so it's presentation for you, is that
Yeah.
what it is? Okay.
So like a new
got it.
board member, like you're the
Yeah,
newest
yeah,
board member.
yes, yeah, no, I mean, I'm not saying that it's not helpful.
Yeah.
I just, yeah.
All I have.
When I got this in the packet, I thought Megan had passed it out.
I don't know.
And I, as, you know, I know it, but I just put it down because I didn't, I was gonna read it later.
Yeah.
Uh,
You can read it later, you don't.
Oh, I know it, but, I don't know what to ask about it because there are some words on here like yeah,
That's my phrase.
we need
Yeah, I didn't know
definitions,
that.
we need definitions and a lot in here.
Okay,
There's
so
a lot.
what the rebound is,
Well, you don't have to say it now.
I'll say it now.
Just-
That way you don't have any questions.
okay. Well,
Essentially what I did is I took all the schools 3 years prior to COVID, 19, 18, 17. I averaged those proficiency scores and I broke them down by math and ELA. And then the 3-year rebound is how schools did getting back to the pre-COVID levels. So the column all the way to the right says 3-year rebound, and it gives you a percentage, which is probably a little hard to read at the Northfield School.
Yeah.
The 6-year rebound is the 6-year average prior to COVID, compared to the last 2 years' proficiency results on the New York State School Report.
So what I'm supposed to do this is to take the data and look at the comparisons among the districts?
You can do whatever you
And
want with
then
it. I just think that this
Where do
type
you
of-
go, I mean, what do you want to discuss then? What the differences are?
The hardest thing
or-
over 5 years for me, and if I'm the only one, I'm the only one, is when we're presenting proficiency data, 3 through 8 ELA and math, it always shows the current year and the previous year. And for somebody that's just coming into a role, they have no idea what that's such a small segment of, or it's under a microscope, you really don't know where the district is. And I think there needs to be longer-term data provided to the board so they can see what direction the board or the school district is headed. You know, that 1-year gain is great, but I mean, over the course of 5 years, you might have twice the gain. And it makes, I think it's hard for a new board member to come on and know where we are, where we really stand. with the data, the way it's presented right now. If we had a live document such as this, or something similar to this, somebody that comes on new will be able to see, quick and simple, where we're at and where how our students are achieving.
That's a good rationale.
And I, for myself, I mean, I'm not opposed to, I mean, I have been very vocal about, I like to look at data, I like to look at information. And I do think, for me personally, it's helpful to be able to see trends in what the data is. But I think it's not just the achievement data for me. There's other data that would be helpful too, that we've been talking about. Because you also have to compare this to graduation rates, because that's the ultimate goal, right?
Well,
So I think we also need to be looking at, over the 6 years, what has been the ultimate for our graduation rates as well? Because that's important.
I think everything you're talking about goes into what I'm saying, which is longer-term data, simplified in an area,
So
in
that,
a document.
so that's what, and I support that myself. But it needs to be the whole, not just our school report card data. Although it's information that's helpful, I think that we have to look at the whole.
Oh, certainly. Well, the graduation rate's on the school report card. I mean, that would be it was just 15 hours. I wouldn't do it anymore.
I would want you to. It's not your job to do that, though. I mean, really. So, but do we need to discuss that at another meeting, or is that a workshop discussion to go back to, what's the data that would be helpful?
I'm okay with doing it, but not in isolation, because it's not our job as board members.
Oh, correct.
I think we need Megan's input.
No, yeah, not,
You know,
I totally
I understand what you're doing, I think the information would be good, but I don't think we're the ones to do it.
No.
So as long as Megan would be involved, or whoever it would be, I think it needs to be an effort that's with the administrators.
Yeah, but I think we have talked about that
Right.
before.
Yes.
That would be helpful,
But-
to put in our, to have every year.
But
Right.
Well, the goals for this year, this came from our goals for this year. I mean,
Right.
we haven't talked
Right.
about it.
Yeah.
So essentially, somebody
Right.
could have done it.
Yep.
And
And you did, good.
there we go.
But not in isolation. I'm opposed if we're doing it just as.
Well, I think you're taking it the wrong way. There's no isolation. It's
No,
a
I know.
matter of, that's 30,000.
I want
for
Megan
data.
to see this.
Okay, she can
Yes.
see it, it's not a secret.
But what I feel like I'm hearing is Jason doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want us to do it. He's asking the administrators that we get this from the district. Is that what you're asking?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, same
That
thing
we
we've
don't
asked
do
for
it.
years.
Yeah. Pardon? Well, I understand this, but I think he's
It's
trying
learning.
to.
That's a format, that's a format.
It's a, right.
So this is what you're asking for.
It's an example.
Just an example, it's an example of a format, thank you.
It may not
Something
be
that shows the same data long term.
Okay,
You know.
so we as a board then would be requesting that
Correct.
this information be provided to us via our administrators.
Well, no, our policy requires that. I mean, the policy, we have policy stating that, annual and
Right.
annual updates on the, academic success of our students. So I mean, this is just the way in which that data is presented to us, is all we're asking.
I agree with that, but what we would be asking our administrators to put this together and provide it to us, right?
Yeah, I mean, however they presented it, as opposed to having 1 year or 2 years.
Correct, right.
100%.
Yes, okay, so we're saying the same thing.
Right.
Certainly, I'm not saying use this.
Okay,
This is
that's
just
what I
an
thought you
example.
said in the beginning.
Oh,
That's
absolutely
what I
not.
was like, I don't know if this is accurate or not.
No, that's not my job. No.
Exactly.
No. I just want somebody that comes on the board that's new, like.
So you're looking for longevity.
Absolutely. And then you just add to it every year. And in the middle, hence why I asked for the last couple of years, assessment data. You can put the assessment data right in with it, so you see the winter assessment data, then you see the spring
Yep.
proficiency data.
Yep.
And then you can start to see if the assessment data is relevant, because, if there's a huge difference between third grade, you know,
Yes, I just thought that you were saying, oh, we're gonna use this as our document that we're gonna look at, and I was saying, I'm not doing it.
no, not at all. It's-
I wasn't hearing that.
Okay,
I did.
So that's
I-
fine. I asked for clarification, I got it.
You got it, okay. All right.
We had discussed this early on in the year,
Yes.
and then I remember the times when we just dropped it. It was suggested we do it, and it fell on deaf ears. So, and I think Paul's idea was that it has to be a trend data. That's what Jason is looking at. If you do 5 years and then add to it, you're looking at trend data. And that was going to be like an appendix in our handbook.
Correct.
Yes.
Right.
And we never really did that.
Right.
See, I don't see the report card as establishing trends, because every report card has a different group of students. And even the same class may be different students. To me, the report card is just a snapshot in time. On this particular, with this particular test, with this particular bunch of students, this is what the scores were. And then the next year, you've got a new group of students, a new test.
Unfortunately, though, the state looks at it differently.
That's what we've got.
So the challenge is, like we recited for middle school, for our, right. So we do need to be looking at our trends, because if we aren't careful, our whole middle school is gonna be under that same microscope for all their students next year. So I feel as a board member, it is our responsibility, not to look at it as like the holy grail, but I do think
That's
it's.
what I'm afraid of.
But I don't believe anybody should. This is just one little piece of data, the school report card. We need to be, the most important data is our graduation rates. It really is,
That I
okay?
agree with.
Right, so we need to be looking though at all the data. Not just this in isolation.
Right, and while it may be helpful for I'm always worried that new board members who've had no experience with the educational system think you can compare 1 year to the next year, and you can't. Because you've got different students, and you have a different test, you have, and it's not just the kids who are different, but their circumstances may be different. It may not be that, maybe there was some of them were sick. I'm not saying this isn't good data, I'm just not sure that comparing it from year to year to year is a viable comparison.
Well, I mean, there's a policy that states that we have to present the school report card data every year. So, I mean, knowing that we have to do it anyway, and that's essentially the standard that they hold us to as far as accountability, I don't think it's out of the realm of reality to want some sort of easy way, because there's no easy way for a new board member to go on the New York State's website and look up all this information. And there's no easy way within the district to obtain. So if it's something that the district is collecting and just putting in a format where it's easily found, I mean, I think that's the whole point behind technology. I mean, there's a reason the access to information quickly is important. And a new board member, like Shelley the last year, I'll guarantee if she had something that she could look at that would show the last 10 years graduation rate, she'd be thrilled to us, because she'd know exactly where we're at, but could you tell me right now what it was for the last 10 years?
No.
But if you
I don't want to know for the last 10 years, Jason, but.
You would if you increased it by 50%, you would want to know that, because you'd celebrate.
Right. I mean, I think there's a lot of data that, again, it's looking at like at every grade level. How many students do we have at every grade level? you know, what are the trends there so that we can be thinking about those. So, you know, I think as a board, we need to come together and determine what's the data. We had this conversation this summer.
It's our goal.
Right.
It's one of our
Right,
goals.
Right, so what's the information that we want that's meaningful, that people aren't going to use in a negative way? It's not to use it in a negative way. As I've shared, my experience in gathering all of this, it was found to be positive. The school board was very positive in then supporting us in looking at our data. So it's not done to say, and I gotcha. It's done to say, oh my gosh, maybe you need more, or how can we support you as a school board in a different way? It's just making decisions as a school board member. It's helpful to have the information, and I think that's all that you're suggesting. I think it's a good conversation that we need to have, and it's providing what do we all agree on that we want, and how can we do it in a way that's reasonable for our administrators to pull it together and provide it to us every year.
If you don't have the data to make decisions, you're making decisions based on feelings, and that never works.
Right, well, we all agree to that.
So what do you expect then to come out of the discussion next meeting?
I think we have.
I think the discussion needs to be around our goal, which is a consensus among the board as to what type of information they expect to be presented. You know, not criticizing, I'm just saying.
It's different than just using this.
This is a model for a way that information is provided. I mean, you know, we can have a discussion about whether they want the graduation rate to be part of it, or it's not that's not a template, it's how the format in which it's going to be presented. And I think if we're going to follow through with our board goals, we need to have the discussion at some point in time. Or we're going to get to June and we're not going to have done anything with that board goal.
So Jason, your presentation then is not necessarily to look at this document.
Exactly, that's where I was.
Okay, it's to look at,
The format.
go back to what we decided.
The only
last
reason there's
summer
multiple schools, the only
to
reason.
do.
Correct.
The only reason there's multiple schools there is that so you have different sets of data. There was really no, if you're only using North Rose-Wolcott, then you can just see North Rose-Wolcott.
Yeah.
But this gives you more examples of what it might look like if you were in a different, I guess, no, you're 100%
Right.
Yes. Or we just write it off the goals. I mean, it's one or the other. I just don't want to get to the end of the year and do an evaluation on how we felt we did, and then say, well, once again, we didn't do these goals, or we haven't revisited.
So the goal was to look at historical data and present data and make that into an appendix, shall we say, that for future board members
Decide what.
to decide on, to look at how we're doing overall. I think I said before, I think you're right. I think it's a very, very valuable thing to have.
I would even add current and new board members.
Yeah, mhm.
Okay. Am I getting a consensus then? You'd like to put that on?
Could we have Jason then give us some leading questions into a discussion if we decide to do this for next year, next month, I mean? In other words, to consolidate, give us a focal point of what to discuss.
Or we
I
can
think-
submit.
I think
we can submit, yeah.
We can submit questions.
I think that it would be more valuable if everyone
Yeah.
submitted a question, because then you're gonna get a broader view of what's important to people. And then, you know, singularly, it's really, I mean, it's just Jason's thing. But if you
Yeah,
ask a
sure.
question to Shelley, graduation rate, you know.
Can you put something together and remind us?
If we collect questions, let's make sure that we don't then start having discussions over the internet, okay?
No, but just submitting the questions is not.
Just, right, but We
Right,
tend,
no, there's no-
we tend in the past to start communicating back and forth, and I don't want
It's not a
that
question
to
and
happen. I
answer
want
thing,
it to be an in-person
Yeah.
kind of thing. Okay.
So we need to start.
So John, what you're asking for is what information that we're gonna want.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm sorry that I won't be here at the next board meeting, so I will submit just my thoughts on what would be helpful as a board member to inform us, but not to do it in a negative way. The information is only provided for us to make informed decisions to help us support the district. That's the goal. Well, that is the goal. I mean,
You said it perfect.
right, the goal is to help us, help you. That's the goal. Not to do any I gotchas and, because the most important information, one of them is our graduation rates. The second most important, it is the academic, but it's around behavior and it's around kids feeling safe. And I think from our surveys that are going to be completed, that's other data points and information that's going to be very helpful for us and the district to be able to collaboratively look at that information together to say, what do we need to focus on here? You know?
Yeah, and a board, you know, if you look at the data and you say as a whole, you know, to the superintendent, we'd really like you to put a bigger push, including the money and effort, as you're saying, into increase in getting our math scores up at the elementary school, or improving our achievements there. Then it's their job to do it.
Yep.
We're just saying, this is,
You just want the information.
yeah. So you've used the data as you're saying.
Correct, right. It's to support the district. It really is. It's to help us say, wow, we really need to put more resources here, or,
We're doing great here.
or, yeah, I mean, that's the point of it, not to do, our job is to support the superintendent of schools and all of the staff, and our students most importantly, okay? And so, how do we do that? And I'll speak for me personally, it's the more information that I have, the better informed I am to be able to support students, staff, superintendent. It's just helpful for me to do that.
Okay. We have a plan. Okay. We have good news.
Well, I had two more for the board discussions.
Oh.
We were going to discuss
Okay, sorry about that.
representative to the code of conduct, a routine. You asked about that, right, Mike, on one of your Friday updates?
I did.
So do we want to have that discussion, or it's either now or at the next meeting? And then also about joining teams, not baseball, but
It doesn't matter what team it is.
joining teams with other districts, sports teams.
When is the code of conduct going to be, that committee's starting in the summer, right? It's starting now. 'Cause I
So,
have two
the-
different dates, so I was
Well,
confused.
so I think Lori misspoke and said this
Okay.
summer. So the
All right,
Code of
that's right.
Conduct Committee is actually gonna be getting together in April. I can't recall when I put out the question, so I know last August there was opinions on the Code of Conduct and having a board member there, so I put it out a while ago to see if we wanted board representation. So our committee hasn't set the date yet, but we're forming. So it would be helpful if the board were to have that discussion and say whether there's board representation or not. And then with respect to the athletic teams, that's a piece where, district has to decide whether or not, we feel the need to continue to work with neighboring districts with respect to shared teams.
Well, that's, all right, code of conduct. Isn't code of conduct operational? Should we be involved with operations to that degree? I mean, Yeah, we're on we have a representative in the safety committee, but that's not just operational, that's a whole piece in itself. In guaranteeing that our kids are, have a safe environment. It's big in today's world. To me, the code of conduct is operational, and we shouldn't be involved in it.
Are they gonna ask for a parent?
There's several parents involved, yeah.
There you go.
There you go, what?
I don't see why we're excluded from, we're not, not, well, we are a parent. Gee, no, yeah. Right.
Forget.
I didn't understand where you were headed, John.
Well, if you know, I asked if we had outsiders other than the administrators and the teachers and aides, whoever else is on the committee, bus drivers, isn't it? Who knows? And if they were excluded, then, you know, I guess I'm not making sense here.
So the group is forming still.
Yeah.
We have solicited outside support,
You're all
feedback.
inclusive. You're all inclusive.
Well, we're trying to be, you know, we always try to be inclusive, so question was, because it was brought up in August, does the board want a representative? And that's the discussion that was put out in the Friday newsletter, and that's where it's
It
since.
is, yeah. For me, if there's parents on it, I don't feel like, I think it's just up to a board member, but I don't feel like there needs to specifically be a board member on it. I think if, you know, is it a parent or community member? I don't know. I don't see a specific need that it needs to be a board member, but that's just my opinion.
Coaches would be, everybody would be represented.
Well, I can't say everyone will be represented, but there's definitely representation from multiple
Right,
stakeholders,
There's
yes.
a cross-section.
Correct.
We ultimately approve it once it's written, right?
Correct.
Right.
That's our part. That's where I see our part would be, not in writing it, not in contributing to it, but in approving it once it's finalized. That's my opinion.
I can understand Paul in his question because, yes, it's operational, but so are capital projects. And we're very involved in capital projects because they're the long-term direction of the district. I think the code of conduct falls in the same type of category. It sets the foundation of the expectations of the school, of the Board of Education. I mean, the code of
I don't
conduct is
think the code of
essentially.
conduct is anything like the capital projects. That's financial, that's our bailiwick, that's what we're charged with by state law. We're not charged with code of conduct and how people behave in school. But it's, a representative isn't gonna hurt, but I do think that if a board member is on the code of conduct and helps develop it, we should consider whether or not that board member should then vote for or against it, because they helped.
You could say the same thing about negotiations committee.
I'm getting too fussy, that's all.
You could say the same thing about negotiations committee. I mean, having a board member on that, I mean, that's operational.
That's true.
I wouldn't want, though, the committee to feel, if a board member is on the committee, that that board member's opinion has to be always listened to. You know what I'm saying?
You don't want it weighted.
I do not. I don't want people to feel uncomfortable because there's already a discomfort. Oh, you're a board member, which at first I was like, oh. It just really, I don't want people to feel uncomfortable because we're a board member and to make them feel like, oh, we've got to do what they say because they're a board member. So I would want to be cautious of that. I'm glad there's parents on it, and there's a cross-section, so that's, yeah.
Was there,
We're really community members. That's all we are.
We are.
When you think about it, right? There's community members that are gonna be on this. I just don't feel we have a role in it.
were there board members on the Strategic Action Plan Committee?
Yes,
You were voted.
yes, because I was there.
But that seems a little
It's
different.
different.
I was just asking, I'm
Yeah,
not.
no, that's a good question, but that seems a little different to me.
The code of conduct is defining the expectations that we have of students on a daily basis. The strategic action plan is the district goal for all students as to how we're gonna, and the expectations that we have as a district educate, in all areas. It's different.
Well, code of conduct goes further than students.
Absolutely.
It does.
Yeah, it does. Shows visitors in your building even. Oh, yeah.
I'm open. I'm not.
Yeah, it doesn't make any difference, I'm just arguing to argue, but I think there's, no, I think you have to look at it from both ways. You can't just say, no, I don't think the board members should be on it, when board members are on the audit committee,
I got it.
you know, other
Got it,
things.
got it,
Okay,
got it.
I'm getting a no from Michelle, I get a no from Tina. John, you're a yes or a no?
I'm in the middle, I'll,
You don't care?
I guess I can see the virtue one way or the other, although code of conduct, having lived through it, is very complex. Just because you're a board member doesn't mean that you have special knowledge of it. So I guess I'll say no.
Can I ask one thing? Because didn't we redo the code of conduct, or didn't the staff redo the code of conduct last year? What changes are we making? Yeah, no, they did.
Staff made adjustments to it last year. The last time it was rewritten
I'm not
was
saying
in,
rewritten.
No, I think to me, that's right.
last time it was rewritten was in 2020 by outside counsel. So this calls for, real deep dive and some scrutiny, because obviously in 2020, we were dealing with a pandemic, and since 2020, most data, including academic, has been altered, as well as attendance and behavior and everything else, and the code of conduct is not immune to that. So this one's gonna be a little bit more comprehensive, and it'll be facilitated by two people with a cross-section representing our district. And we're looking at some shortcomings from past decisions that have been made with discipline, and including people that can give us feedback on what went well, what went poorly, and how we've had to rectify that.
Well, I appreciate whoever's going to be running the committee, because it's a lot of work, not really, and it's hard work. So I commend whoever it is you've appointed.
What are we talking length of time that you've allotted for this?
Well, we haven't got the final decision as to who's on it yet, because we're still forming. So this discussion is helpful, because that's a component where, again, in order to fulfill some things with certainty, you know, we need to know whether we're having board member participation. So I would hope that, you know, you're gonna have that public hearing still in the summer. I don't think any committee member is gonna sign up for, you know, life, right? Like, they wanna have some fine tuning, some adjustments. There's, like I said, it's been scrutinized by council, so there are certain legal things that we have to go through again. There are things that I mentioned in August when I did the public hearing that I wanna see added to ours currently. So that'll be utilized and, you know, implemented, as well as far as feedback, whether the committee agrees with it. But my hope is that, you know, by the end of the school year, we're in a position where we can make the edits and do the corrections so that it's published, or posted rather, and then when the public hearing comes out, people can see what's actually been done to it. Because I know that every year seems to be, again, we're chasing and chasing and chasing. And then when the time comes, you know, we're looking at some revisions right away.
So you're anticipating by opening of school that it would be
Oh, it
finished up?
has to be.
Right.
Has
okay.
to be. Yeah.
I wanted to make sure.
Yep, absolutely, it
Okay.
has to be. I would anticipate by the end of spring that we'll be, like I said, we'll have the input and the feedback, and we'll be working on edits over the summer so that we hit our mark with the posting and then implementation.
Paul, what's your opinion?
Well, I don't feel strongly about it either way, but I would defer to whatever our superintendent wants. If he wants a board member, I think we should put one on. If it's not, you know, if it isn't something that he feels strongly about, it's gonna be a lot of work for somebody.
Right, that's right. Yeah, it is. All right, you're either way. Jason, how do you feel?
I'm either way.
You're either way.
My only concern is I just would hate to tell a board member that wanted to be a part of it, no, you can't be a part of it because you're a board member. So, this is gonna be a lot of work that I have no interest in, but if
Well,
I'm sorry,
I've
I didn't
got
understand,
three.
Michael.
I said I'm not gonna share an opinion tonight, so as to whether a board member should or shouldn't. So that was a board discussion, so that was a piece, I just wanna finish that thought, please.
Okay.
So that was really for you guys, just like the data discussion. So there's a lot of back and forth, and it seems like a sliding scale between the what and the how. The how is the operational piece, and the what is what you're asking for. So really, you know, I'm being brought into a board member discussion, and that's really not my role. I mean, I appreciate Paul bringing it up because I asked, and I did look for an answer, so thank you. And I'm not really getting a clear answer, so it's not appropriate for me to say one way or another.
Well, you already know, if I vote, I'm a no. So I guess, generally speaking, we're a no. No board member, I'm co-dependent. Okay? Okay. But for me,
It's not my.
no, but
it's for
I'm
you
saying,
guys.
okay,
Yeah,
I'm telling.
I understand
All right,
the
so
feedback,
we're,
yes.
okay. All right, let's continue on then. Yes, we do need to talk about the team business of being on other teams. We know how Shelley feels. She's already made that clear. And I'm on the opposite side.
Oh, wait a minute, what do you mean about,
Having kids join our teams from other school.
oh, well, let me just restate, I don't think I stated tonight why I feel that way.
Okay, well, okay, go right ahead.
I think if we're looking at having students that want to participate in football and students that want to then come here to participate in soccer, it's not just looking at those two sports. It's impacting all fall sports. It's impacting volleyball, it's going to impact golf. So it's not just that simple. And then once you start, then what do you say to a student? Oh, modified, you can go ahead and play at the other school, but okay, JV, now we don't need you, or varsity, we don't need you. We right now have enough students to field teams. Let's leave it clean. That's my opinion.
So if you say no, then this young lady who is, you're saying no to other students, that you don't want our students to go other places. We don't accept their students. Can we expect them to accept ours?
That's a very different, to me, that's a very different specialized sport. Okay. That's my opinion is that's a very specialized situation. It's very different than, again, kids wanting to come here to play soccer or baseball, or we have enough students to field the team. We don't have a race team.
So I think what you're saying is to accommodate a school that reaches out to us because they can't field a team this year, I think that you're okay with being open and helpful in those scenarios. But to advertise that our students can go to Clyde to play football and Red Creek can play lacrosse, to spread out our already declining enrollment and hurt our coaches isn't the best path.
Correct.
I think it's a fine line that you have to walk, because like you're saying, you don't want to upset a surrounding school that can help us if we can't field a team. But on the flip side, we don't wanna ruin, our chances of fielding teams as well. So I think it comes down to common courtesy. If somebody reaches out to us, we have to make a decision that we're gonna be accommodating to that school and vice versa.
Depends on the common courtesy and what the sport is. I mean, I just, you know, I think we need to look at numbers. If you look right now at the numbers that we have and the participation that we have for, the rec programs right now, which, you know, the parents need to be commended for the time and the effort that they're putting in. I think, for me, if we were gonna talk about that, I would want it to be a community conversation.
Do we have, for the rec programs, do we have any coaches that are helping out with that, or? I'm truly asking.
No, I'm thinking, I don't think so.
They're all community members.
Yeah, they're all community, so I would really want to know what community members, what do you think? You're putting all this time and effort in to cultivate our own, and then we're going to say, oh, sure, you can come from other schools. It's just my opinion.
What would happen in Vivian's case?
We could establish our own ski team.
We really need Mr. Blankenberg to have this discussion.
Okay,
So
that makes sense.
there's times where there's a team of one, there's times where you're a combined team, those types of things. So we really need Mr. Blankenberg for that discussion. I think the request is put out from a neighboring district. And, you know, the community as a whole should remember that the board over the last few years has supported several feeder programs at a modified level for the sake of growing capacity within and being sustainable, because recent trends again would show student participation in several areas is down. So I think it would require Mark to be here to speak specifically about what those options are. I believe a few years ago the board felt that there was some agreements that were hashed out, and then when it got to the stage where it was voting, the participating district that was going to work with us pulled out, and they asked for 3 and then decided on 1, and that wasn't what was discussed with the Board of Education here. It wasn't discussed with the administration here, but it was a change that caused people to start really scrutinizing, do we need to continue to do this? You know, we had merged basketball teams previously, we've had merged baseball teams previously, so question is, you know, do you want to open up and extend that opportunity or not? And look at the pros and cons of both, and if you're asking us to provide you with pros and cons benefits as to whether we need that to sustain, Mark can certainly provide that. If you're saying, you know, that you don't need that level of information, the opinion is continue to grow your feeder programs, continue to grow your own, that's fine too.
I still say if you're not going to accept anyone from outside, then you can't expect those schools to accept your student or students that you don't have a team for, you don't have a coach for. I do understand that there could be a maximum number of kids that you might determine would be max for a team, so that you don't end up with 50 kids on a soccer team. You know, you will have, I mean, at some point, even in your own school, in the olden days, they only took so many for the basketball team, and those that didn't make it didn't play on the team. That was the way it was. And when they didn't have enough to fill the varsity, they pulled in some JVs in those days. If you have a maximum set and you've got room and there's somebody from another school who doesn't have a team and they want to play, and they make the team, and you're not going to take just anybody, then to me that's okay. If you don't have room, you're filled up. You know, go find another school that's not filled up.
to make a decision, they can't do this year by year.
No, I don't think it's fair. And I think we had, years ago, we had a principal, she was a vice principal, who moved from Wolcott.
She did.
To Webster, so her child could play football.
She did, yes, and that's what people can do. They can move to a school when you make that choice.
But
We had
a lot
another
of
family
people
that did that.
can't.
Yes,
We had a
right.
family
If
that
that
moved
other-
their son
if that's
to
that
New
important
Hampshire.
to them.
But I think these, with declining enrollments, I foresee the future of school districts sharing all kinds of opportunities, whether it be different languages, other courses, all kinds of, I think it's gonna have to come to that. We can't be separate islands in the middle of Wayne County ocean. And I think it's cruel and heartless to say to somebody on another, you've got a kid who's really into soccer and that year they don't have a team because they don't have enough kids to make a team. And we have a team, we have an opening. I'm here for our kids, but I'm here for all kids. I think it's important.
We need more information. I don't think we're in a position.
Well,
Yeah, I really mentioned it because I was expecting to have a discussion at a future meeting or at a workshop. So I didn't intend for us to try to make a decision tonight, and I agree with Mike. I think having Mark Blankenberg there was a splendid idea.
He could totally change my mind, who knows? I doubt it, but.
I could give an example of
now
how
that's
baseball.
an honest statement.
Hey, I know it's pretty honest. You know that. To a fault.
I could give an example of how it worked with baseball and with Red Creek, and now we both are building our own teams. But again, that's probably better for the discussion when we decide to have it, if it's the next workshop or
Yeah.
whatever.
And we'll see what we can do.
If Mark monitors this, I'd like to ask him, if we take one student from another school district, I've read someplace that changes our enrollment numbers and it makes us go into a higher level in the sectionals, which is probably detrimental to kids having success. In other words, if we took on students from Newark, let's say, or Wayne, could be Wayne, huge school district, we would then be like the equivalent of East High School or
Be
something.
for that sport,
Well,
not.
I don't know, I think it might be for all sports, but I don't know that. I don't know.
Just for that sport.
Just that sport.
There's a sliding scale now.
They shouldn't have that.
Well, that does, so that part, that's the discussion piece. So I'm hearing you say that you're actually asking for us to have Mr. Blankenberg present, not with specifics in mind, but a general statement about the benefits of a team of one, shared teams, things of that nature. Is that what we're hearing the board's asking for, not to take specifics out, right? Because in the past, we would make those decisions on specifics if there's a specific request. So you're asking us to talk about what our projected numbers are for specific sports, benefits of team of one, merged team, what it does for classification, what it does for competition, and what it does for sustainability. Is that general?
Yes.
So that's the piece where, again, if those are the conversation where you're saying Tina's taking notes and the board clerk's gonna request that Mr. Blankenberg, on behalf of the board, present, that would help.
Sure.
Well, it'll help with the information.
Purposes, it would be for
That's right, but
information.
I'm not here, you can do it.
Well, it won't be a
Zoom
Zoom
in.
meeting, it's too full.
Are you interested to do this?
No, I'm just asking you to make a consideration. This is a conversation that was requested because in the past, it's easy for me to say no. Then that's the part where, again, the question came about, so I can continue to say no, and that's not a problem. Oftentimes, that is the case. You have to make a decision, and that's what it is. However, in the past, when the decision came to the Board of Education, and it gets in front of the board, and the board has to decide whether we go forward with this type of approach or not, that's where lack of information and not enough dialogue prior to that vote comes into play. So the request comes in, and I was asked to share it, and I shared it with the board, and then now I'm hearing the board would like Mr. Blankenberg to show up for a presentation on team of one, shared teams, benefits and things of that nature. And I would ask that in part of that presentation, he consider what the downside and the benefits are, because I know neighboring districts that are much larger than us that are folding programs that have been in play for a long time because there's no longer the participation. So, and they're starting things, and there's a crop of new sports that are out there all the time. Everything from esports to girls flag football, which is taking off, and we actually had a few girls request that last year, you know, because of the powder puff. So I always liken it to when you have a confined space or a controlled size, if you're going to add something, you have to give it up. You have to give up something else, right? You can't keep drawing to that point that you guys are having. You can't keep taking from the same candidate pool and expect sustainability, which again, in 2020, that was a goal, sustainability. So if we start something new, it's gotta be sustainable. If it's not, then it's not worth doing. And that's part of the discussion.
I'm sure you've looked at it, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, well, that was my response too, because the question was just for football and soccer.
Correct.
Okay, so my concern with that, as I said, it's not just about football and soccer. It
Right.
then would impact
Correct.
volleyball and everything else, which that is fearful for me, then you wouldn't have enough volleyball players.
Well, and there's also challenges because now there's dual participation, which has come about post-COVID. So a student athlete can participate in multiple sports during one season. And so that could present some transportation challenges. So there's a snowball effect with any decision you make. You know, one way or another, there's a snowball effect. And that's something that, again, if we're informed, then the Board of Education can make a better decision based on being informed. And again, we won't be able to answer everything, but giving you a sense of what the challenges are.
So being able to participate in dual sports, that's not just a North Rose-Wolcott thing, this
No,
is now
that's
across the board.
section 5, yeah, it changed.
It did.
Yep, so years
Okay.
ago, it used to be a letterman or letterwoman in one sport, and, you know, post-COVID, because during the pandemic, when kids were in school every other day or whatever, and there were no fans, students could run cross-country and play soccer. You know, you could play basketball and bowling and things of that nature, so it's presented a whole set of different things to consider.
I have a grandson who played golf and baseball.
That's up the swing.
Not as bad as field hockey.
Or could the decision even be that, oh, we're gonna stay out of it and just leave it up to the superintendent?
You could do that.
We could even do that.
You
So,
certainly could.
Yeah,
That's not fair.
I don't mind
Okay.
that.
okay. But we will hear from,
Yeah, we'll look at the remaining meetings and
Yeah.
we'll certainly schedule Mark for something because, you know, I know the Booster Club would like to present to the Board of Education as well, and oftentimes they're most associated with athletics. So we could probably pair something together with that presentation, and then Mark can give you your annual participation to see whether you want to continue to support multiple feeder programs and the programs that we have.
okay. All right, good. That does it. All right. Paul, how much
I was
good
gonna
news do
say,
you
I've got,
have?
well, maybe, let me share some of it.
All right, be,
Be brief.
pick and choose.
I will. How about just, our former students who we already talked about, Vivian Bishop. But how about former students that are on the dean's list? I always think that's pretty neat. Lemoyne College for the fall season, Skylar Fox. This is Southern New Hampshire University. It's one that I hadn't reported on before, but Cheryl Rose-Wolcott is on that dean's list. And Hofstra, Dominic Waring. Morrisville, Nadia Endavilski, and then also Lucas Crane, former baseball player. And then for Nazareth, Sophie Roberts of Wolcott. So again, students can come out of here and hit the dean's list if they're trying.
Absolutely. That's good to hear. Thank you. Is that it?
I'll save the rest.
Okay, all right. That completes our agenda. A motion please to adjourn. Oh, got them all. Okay, Tina and Jason. All in favor? Motion is carried. We are adjourned. Good night, Mr. Ford.